Eevee, the evolution Pokemon, its genetic code is irregular. It may mutate if it is exposed to radiation from element stones.
Hello, welcome to my tutorial. We're going to do a Pokedex today in React.js. And the different with this one is that this one's going to talk, just like the one from the cartoon. So we're going to have something like this where we can scroll through the Pokemon, and we're going to feed this into the Mozilla TTS engine. So just as an example, if we put this here and synthesize that with the Mozilla text-to-speech model, it's going to synthesize here, and just like the original Pokemon, it's going to
Psyduck the duck Pokemon uses mysterious powers to perform various attacks.
So that's going to be something very cool we're going to do. So let's start out with the front end. We're going to be using React.js for that. So first things first, go ahead and download Node.js if you haven't already. Just go to nodejs.org, go ahead and go to downloads and choose the one for your OS. If you're running Windows, use the installer. If you're on Ubuntu like I am, you might want to use this Node.js binary distributions, which is already compiled. And I suggest to download the latest stable version, which is 12.x here. So go ahead and copy this command, put it in your terminal if you're on Ubuntu like I am. If you're on Mac, just follow the Mac instructions for Node.js. Once you have that installed, go ahead and run npx create react app, and this one, name it whatever you want. I'm gonna call it talking Pokedex tutorial. That's gonna run, and I'm gonna shut down this text-to-speech server for now. So while that's running, the way that we're going to get the data, which is those Pokedex entries over here, is that we're going to be actually using Pokedex API, Pokemon API, thanks to contributors Paul Hallett, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and other Poke API contributors. Thank you for their work. And also we're going to be using this the CSS Pokedex that someone had already built up for us, HTML and CSS Pokedex, thanks to Tiffany from Toucan Toko, and her GitHub is Bloodstorms, I believe. So thank you to Bloodstorms for creating this. And here's the Git repository. So once we have this create React app completed, and go in, use your favorite code editor. Here I'm using VS Code, and first thing you want to do, you want to npm start this. Keep this terminal running because this is going to start up a localhost using Node server on your localhost 3000. And keep this running. Let's start a new tab just in case we want to do other work, right? So once we have this, let's go ahead and jump into the code. As you can see, if I edit the code, it's going to hot reload. So first things first, let's delete this test because we're not going to use it. Delete this logo, we're not going to use it. And the setup test, we're not going to use as well. Let's see, so we deleted logo, so we can't import it anymore. In index, we didn't import anything, okay. And then lastly, for where else do we import logo from? To. Alright, so you want to delete everything in this app.js. Within this div, we want to delete everything because we're going to create our own stuff. Let's go ahead and delete this and just type a hello world to see, just to make sure it's there. And we see hello world here now. I personally, just to stay organized, this is optional, but I want to move all my CSS into a designated folder. So I'm just going to create a folder here called style sheets. And I'm just going to put this here, put it here. And you could also put it in a public folder, but the problem is that with Node.js, it doesn't know how to cache these resources, so that's going to be a problem. So once we have this in style sheets, we're going to fix our imports here. So style sheets. And style sheets. So everything should be good. Delete these two logos as well, because we're not going to need them. And let's delete them for the manifest. These two logos here. Go ahead and delete all this stuff. Okay, so once we got that, go ahead and change the name here to Talking Pokedex. That. Alright, let's just name both Talking Pokedex. It's easier to see. Yeah, this is good. This is a good font size. 16 is much bigger. Okay. So index, let's see. Okay, manifest, we're good on that. And for index.html, the few things we want to change is description here. We're going to change this to Pokedex that is able to narrate or talk. Here we're going to change this to Talking Pokedex. This title here. And that's all you need to change here. We're not going to touch this index.html for the rest of the tutorial. Yeah, we probably want to get rid of this logo now, because that Apple icon is no longer there. Okay, that's it. Okay, so let's get back to the app.js. So thanks to Tiffany from Toucan Toko. She has a CSS created Pokedex here. And I found the code pen for this project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy this HTML and the CSS into a new React component. So here I'm going to create a new React component in source called Pokedex. We're going to call it Pokedex UI.js. And you can also name it JSX to be more precise, since it's a React component. Copy everything from here to here so that we have React, and change this to Pokedex.css, which we're gonna actually copy from here, Pokedex.css, and we're gonna change this to Pokemon UI. Class name, component name usually should match the file name here. And then the last thing you need to change is this one. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to copy all this HTML code into here. Format this document. One thing you need to do is that you need to change all these classes into class name. If you're using VS Code, you can use hold Control and press D. In my case, I'm using a Vim extension shortcuts, so I'm just going to do it the Vim way. And you can also use the search and replace function over here to replace all the class with class name. There you go. So the reason we use class name is because HTML converting to JSX or React components, you're going to need to use class name instead of class. That's just the way it works. And let's see. Okay. This is going to be a problem. Delete that last div that I didn't copy over. Okay, so let's format this document again. And let's take a look. Okay, because we haven't put it in the. Let's also copy the CSS here. Right, we'll make a new style sheet called Pokedex.css. Paste that in here, and import the new component that we created. So import Pokedex UI from /Pokedex UI, and that'll allow us to call the Pokedex UI component, put that component over here. As you can see here, it's working perfectly. We have a Pokedex here. So thank you to Tiffany for this work. So Bloodstorms, I mean, also known as Bloodstorms. So what we want to do is we want to dynamically change this, right? When I press this button, I want it to dynamically change to the next Pokemon. And I'm going to get my data from the Pokemon API. So if we take a look at the documentation for Pokemon API here, and there's a fair use policy here. There's some rules. You have to locally cache your resources when you request them, so you don't overload the servers. Use the correct user agent header, be nice and friendly. Okay, so notice this wrapper library section. There's a Node server-side auto-caching library by Thomas and Alessandro. So thank you to these talented developers for providing us this. And this, we just have to go here. So notice a lot of coding is just copying and pasting other people's code, you see. So thank you to these talented developers for their work. If you this auto caching is very useful. If you need to create your own local caching, that's going to take some work. Follow these instructions. All you need to do is npm install Pokedex Promise v2, which is their npm library. And as that's installing, let's go ahead and copy this code here and just put it in our app.js main component. And I like to use const here just to feels more proper there. Move this instantiation inside the component. Let's call this API so that it's clear, because there's a lot of Pokedex things named with Pokedex here. So this is the API, and let's see, once it's finished installing, then let's try some of the examples. We actually need to get, let's say, get Pokemon. If I just copy this example here, it should log me Eevee, data from Eevee. If I go to the console, as you can see, Eevee's logged here, over here, with Eevee here, and some information, some sprites, some moves. So let's see what kind of data we're trying to get. First, we're trying to get the name, but the most important thing about the talking Pokédex is this text here. And this text is actually not available in this Pokemon object. So let's see where we can find it. Go to the documentation for Poke API. Go down to Pokemon. We're going to see that Pokemon doesn't actually have the object that we want is Pokemon species here. So if we go down to Pokemon species, you're going to see a flavored text entries. And within here, you can see that there's a description here. This is what we want. When the bulb is on its back grows large, it appears to lose the ability. Okay, so that's the thing that we want to put here. So how do we get this one? Well, we can look at the library and see if there is a get Pokemon species by name. There it is. So instead of get Pokemon by name, we can go ahead and just get Pokemon species by name. Let's do something more common like Pikachu. This is going to be a different object. This is going to have a flavor text entries, which is an array. And notice there is a lot of descriptions here in different languages. So what we want to do is we want to get the first one that's English. Okay, so there's a bunch here. These are different entries from different games, different languages. So we just want to get the first English entry. So how do we know that it's English? If we take a look at one of the objects inside there, notice there's a language object, and inside language there's an attribute called name, which tells us the language is English. So what we want to do here is we want to filter response dot flavor text entries. Flavor text entry is an array of 74 objects. So want to filter. Filter takes an argument x, which represents all 74 entries here, and it's going to loop through everything, and we only want to return those which are whose languages under language there's a name attribute is going to be equal to English. Let description equals this, and let's try to console.log the description and see what happens. So now our array of 74 entries is down to 26, and 26, they're all English, but there's still 26 of them. What we can do is we can get the first one. You can actually even get a random entry if you wanted to, but for simplicity we'll just get the first one. So the first one is going to be indexed at 0, and we just want the flavor text attribute, which is this. Okay, so all we have to do here is get the 0th entry, which is the first one, and we just want the flavor text. Is there a word wrap? I think we should enable word wrap here. I'm going to turn on word wrap. Okay, that's better. So description equals to response. We filtered by the language, which is equal to en, and we took the 0th element, which is the first entry in flavor text, and you notice here that this is Pikachu's description in English. Okay, so that's the information that we want to put here. We also want this, and this is known as the genus, or the genome, genus, genera, something like that. So if we go back to the documentation and see how to get this information, we can see that there, under species, Pokemon species, there is a genera. Under genera, there's genus. But there might be multiple genus in different languages, so this one happens to be in English. So we're going to do the same thing with what we did with the text entries. We're going to filter all the English one and take the first genus. Make another variable called genus. Maybe I should add a space here. Easier to see. So let genus equals to response dot, in this case it's going to be genera, and we want to filter all the English ones, so we'll go ahead and type dot filter. It's going to take an argument x, and we're just going to return x language dot name equals en. And I think we don't need this parentheses here. That's optional if we only have one argument. We're going to take the 0th entry. If there's more than one English one, we're just going to take the first one here, and we're going to get the genus attribute. So at the end here, I'm just going to type dot genus, and to see, just to check that we did that right, and check Pikachu's genus. So that's the genus, the mouse Pokemon. We can try different Pokemon just to make sure. Charmander, lizard Pokemon. Okay, so that's what we're going to put here. The whatever Pokemon. We're going to put the description here. Now we also need other attributes like the sprite, the name, and the type, height, and weight. So for name, we can get it from Pokemon species actually, because there's a name attribute here. So all we need to do is have a name here. Response.name. Then console that out. We're actually going to get the name. Charmander. Okay. Once we get that, the other information that we need is not going to be in Pokemon species anymore. We need to get our other information from somewhere else. So somewhere else means we got to go back to the Pokemon object to get the weight. Wait, let's see if species has it though. No, it doesn't have weight or height. Yeah, we have to go back to the Pokemon object to get the weight, the height, and the sprite as well. So there's several sprites here. Usually want to get the front default one right here. So in order to do that, we're going to actually make another call using this Pokedex API library. So if I make another call here within here, Pokemon get, instead of species, we're going to get Pokemon by name. Here we're also getting Charmander, so the same Pokemon. We're using promises, so we have to, because this is asynchronous, so we have to put a function here. Let's change all these to arrow functions just to stay consistent. Just to stay consistent, I'm changing all these to arrow functions. Console.log the response, and I'm not going to put this name here. So this is going to give me a different object, obviously, with height. There should also be weight somewhere. Weight. Sprites. With different, we want the front default. What we want to do here, actually let's catch the error. There might be an error. Actually, I don't know if this catch also catches this error though. But just in case, we'll also, doesn't hurt. Let's just copy this one. Doesn't hurt to catch again, but I'm not sure if this error catches the error inside here, so. Get the height and weight. Weight, and we also need the sprite. Now sprite, there's a bunch. We want the front default. I believe that's what it was called. Oh, I need to add a let here. Response.sprite is not defined. So let me console.log response again to see what it was. So sprites front default. So I was just missing an S here. I was just missing an S. Okay, so let's go ahead and console.log the sprite and see that the URL is there. There it is, the URL for the sprite, which we're going to dynamically change here. So we have all the data that we need. Store all this into a object that we're going to pass to the state later using React hooks. Create a new object here. So we have all this stuff. Put it all in here. Name, description. We have the genus, height, weight, sprite, console.log that out just to make sure that we did everything correctly. So Charmander, description, height, weight. We don't have units for these, so we can figure that out later though. So now we want to be able to actually right click and change the Pokemon, right? Make a list of Pokemon first before that we want to shift through. So let's pick the most popular ones, or pick your favorite ones. Pikachu, Eevee, Snorlax, Chansey. Let's try something new from X and Y, like Greninja and Mew, because why not? Give this a variable name called Pokemon list. And if you notice on the top of Pokemon API though, there is a note here that says data from Gen 8 is not available yet, so that's unfortunate, but everything below that should be there. Okay, so you can put anything you want in here. We're just gonna put these 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for now. Let's add Blastoids or Charizard, why not? Just to keep it more variety. Now this function here, we want to create a state to store these details. Okay, and we want to create two states actually. We need one to loop to make sure to keep track of which Pokemon we're on, and we need one to store the details of this, which we're going to pass to the Pokedex UI to dynamically change these attributes instead of using the hard-coded values here. Create the index first. So we want to import use state. This is the new React hooks feature. So we're going to import use state, and all we need to do is specify the name of the state variable we want. This is going to be index set index. Set index is going to be the function that's going to update this index that we define here, and this is going to be use state, and the first index is going to be 0 for Pikachu obviously, and every time we click this we want to increment the index. So if I put index here, it's going to show 0 somewhere here, right? What I want is I want to click this and I want this to iterate, which represents an iteration through my list. So how do we do that? Make a function here. Let's see, I'm just thinking where we should put it. Called right arrow click. And what this is going to do is set the index to index plus 1. I need a let. I'm used to working in Python, so there's no like let or const or var or whatever. So trying to get used to this. So now every time I click, oh not yet, I have to pass it to this Pokemon UI. So let's go ahead and pass it over. So right arrow click equals curly brackets to represent JavaScript inside HTML here. Right arrow click. Over here, to access that function, we have to pass in a props argument inside the functional component, and on our right cross which I presume is this right cross. Use onClick equals props dot right arrow click. So now every time I press this, it should increment 1. Yeah, it's working as I expect. But the problem is that our list only has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. It has 7 items in here, and we don't want to get past that bound of 6 because the index starting at 0, the last one is 6, so we don't want this to be above 6. After 6, we want it to reset back to 0. So how can we do that? Let's just modify this. So we can check if the index is, let's see, is less than the list, Pokemon list dot length. So if it's 0 to 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, increment 1, put a question mark here to question whether index is less than Pokemon length, and if it is, then add 1, else if it's greater than or equal to the length, then we go ahead and go back to 0. See how that works. Yeah, and it goes back to 0. But this is still going to 7, and our last index here is 6. Our last index is 6. And add a -1 to this length. And that should go to from 0 to 6, back to 0. Alright. Do the same thing with the left arrow click. Same thing, just copy this. And we're going to have left arrow click equals left arrow click. And in our Pokemon UI, Pokedex UI, just look for left cross on click equals props dot left arrow click. Oh, the problem is we don't want this to increment 1. We want this to subtract 1. But only if it's we want it to subtract. It's going the opposite direction. So if index is greater than 0, then subtract 1. Else we want to go to the very end, right? The very end is 6. So we actually want this. So that if I go backwards from here, 0, it's going to go all the way back to 6. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that the index is incrementing as we expect. Now we just have to put this description or these Pokemon details into the state. So let's make another state here called Pokedetails. Set Pokedetails as the update function. Use state again. Here we're going to put null. And we're actually going to wrap this. What we're going to do is we're going to put this inside a useEffect hook actually. So go ahead and import useEffect. Basically what useEffect does is that it takes a function and it runs it every time there's a change to the second argument of useEffect. So if I put index in the second argument of useEffect, every time the index changes, it's going to run everything inside. So why don't we do that? If I put this inside a useEffect, Why don't we wrap this in a function first though? So let's call this get Pokemon info. And obviously you need the Pokemon that you want to get. And let's go ahead and wrap this whole thing into this function here. And let's go ahead and format this correctly. See. Okay, so instead of Charmander here, we're going to put Pokemon based on the argument that we're going to pass it, which is Pokemon list of index. That's what we're going to pass here. So use effect is going to take an argument here, and the second argument, it needs to be in a list. So if we put index here, every time index changes, it's going to run everything in here. So it's going to re-render. This is a replacement for component did mount and component did update. Everything here is going to run. So we want to get Pokemon info of the Pokemon list of the index. And inside this function, instead of just logging the details, what we want to do is we want to set Pokedetails to details. So what we're doing is we're passing this details into the state called Pokedetails over here. And this use effect, every time the index changes, is going to get new information to pass to the state. The thing is, we need an initial we actually need an initial state. If we use null and we go to use effect, let's see, is that going to be a problem though? Yeah, it's use effect is component did mount, not component will mount. So I have an idea though. Okay, so okay, that's fine. So last thing we need to do is we need to pass the state of the Pokedetails over to Pokedex UI. So if I put here Pokedetails equals curly braces Pokedetails, then I'm able to access all this information. Name, description, genus, height, weight, and sprite. And all I have to do here, instead of Psyduck here, I can just put props.pokedetails.name. See if that works. It's not working because props.pokedetails is null. Yeah, so that was the problem. So notice the first initial state of the Pokedetails is null. So we're gonna put an OR here. And just put an empty string. Does that work? We just put a question mark here to see if it's null. If it's not null, we're gonna use it. Otherwise, we're just gonna put an empty string here. Yeah, there you go. So what we did is if we're gonna check if Pokedetails has already loaded. If it has, we're gonna get it, the name. If not, we're gonna have an empty string. So once the component loads, then use effect will run, and that'll get us the Pokemon info, which will change the state of Pokedetails, which will then be passed over here, and this will then re-render into Pikachu. Okay, so we want to do the same thing for, oh, I forgot to put the type. Let's go ahead and delete type. We're going to skip type because there's going to be multiple types. It might be a little complicated. We can actually concatenate with commas, but for simplicity, let's just get rid of that. For height, let's go ahead and do the same thing. So check if Pokedetails has initiated yet, and if it has, get the Pokedetails dot height, or else we just get an empty string. There you go. If I change the index here, notice that these dynamically change. So that's exactly what we want. Same thing with the weight. Copy this whole phrase here and put it over here. Delete all this. Delete this. And instead of height, I'm going to change this to weight. Okay, so that's changed. And then instead of the duck Pokemon, we can keep the there. And same thing here. Props.Pokedetails. Props.Pokedetails dot genus else empty string. The mouse Pokemon. Last thing we need to do is the description. Props.Pokedetails. Props.Pokedetails dot description. If it's null, then just put an empty string. There you go. So everything changes here as I go through the index. Charizard. The last thing I want to change is this sprite here. So let's check the sprite. This is the image source. So under picture, let's go ahead and change that. For the alt, let's change this to props.Pokedetails. Well, check if it exists first. If it exists, then do props.Pokedetails.name. Otherwise, put Pokemon. The source here is going to be props.Poke. Well, source here is going to be, you know what, we can actually ask that here, props.Pokedetails. And let's put this image tag inside these curly braces. You need to put this in parentheses. Basically what we're saying is if Pokedetails exists, then go ahead and render an image, and if it doesn't, just return null. So now in here I can be sure that Pokedetails exists. So details dot sprite, and this alt is gonna be props dot name. Okay, so it's going to show the correct sprite now. Every time I scroll through, it's going to show the new sprite for each Pokemon. Snorlax, Chansey, Greninja. Let's add units to this. I don't know what units these are. Yeah. Okay, height, decimeters. I have no idea what that is. Weight, hectograms. I have no idea. So, can we do some math? Let's see, what's an appropriate? Let's go with the metric system. Let's go with meters. Or cm. Actually, cm is more appropriate. So 1 decimeter is 10 centimeters. So we just need to times 10. So for height, we want to do, wait, decimeters, yeah, height times 10. So that's going to be in centimeters, so let's go ahead and put centimeters here on the height. .40 cm, okay. Maybe no space in between, so that it looks better. 40 cm. 60 is hectograms. So let's do, should we do kg? Kg is more appropriate, right? Hectograms to kg is 0.1. So I need to divide this by 10. Yeah. So I need to divide it by 10. So weight is divided by 10. And on weight here, I just need to add kg. Take a look. 6.5 kg, 460. Holy. See, these numbers start to make sense now. Okay. Last thing we're going to do something fun. Instead of the normal sprite, we're going to, once in a while, we're going to show a shiny Pokemon. So what we can do is we can actually write a function for probability, like a 50-50. So let's actually write a function here called flip coin, or let's do flip shiny. And this is going to return to us a random number. So let's floor math.random math.floor 2. And what this is going to do, let's return this, is going to return either 0 or 1. This function is going to return either 0 or 1. So here, instead of getting the front default, we can get the front shiny based on this probability. So here all we need to do is let sprite equals to if flip shiny equals 0, then get the default, otherwise get the front shiny. So let's see how that plays out. I already got a shiny Pikachu. I can't really tell though. Eevee, that's a shiny for sure. That's a normal Snorlax, normal Chansey, normal Greninja. That's a shiny Mew. So it's a 50-50 on getting shiny. So that's something cool. Shiny Snorlax, I think. This is where we left off. We did a Pokedex, which we can move around. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and speak like the original Pokedex entry. So we're going to have something that sounds like the original Pokemon. Actually, I'm not going to play it because of copyright concern, but basically I'm going to play. It's going to say this in the text-to-speech engine that I showed in the beginning. And so let's get set up for that. So we're going to use Python for that because the text-to-speech model is written in Python. So what we're going to use for this is Mozilla's text-to-speech model, which they have open sourced on GitHub. And they have a pre-trained model already trained, and it's very good from what I've seen. So if we go ahead and go to the wiki here, it's going to show us the architecture of the deep learning model, how it's trained. We could even train our own model if we wanted to, but not for this video. Let's go ahead and go to release the models. And they have a release model with the LJ speech dataset, which sounds something like this, which is also going to replicate what our,
The examination and testimony of the experts enable
roughly what our Pokedex is going to sound like. This is the original voice. Obviously, it's not going to sound as good, But let's go, there's several models we can choose from. Choose the one that's packaged already here. So just to demonstrate, let me actually remove my Python environment here so I can show you. So the first thing, you need to install Python if you haven't already, and specifically you need Python 3.6 or higher. On Ubuntu I already have it pre-installed, but if you don't have it, please install it on your operating system. Anything 3.6 or higher should work. Here it recommends 3.6, but anything higher is also going to work. So once you have that installed, you also need to install virtual environment. I think pip install virtual env, I believe pip3 install virtual env. Once you have that installed, create a virtual environment. So the way you would do it is Python 3 mvenv, I believe. Let me double check. Yep. So let me double check this is recording. Okay. So mvenv, and go ahead and specify the directory. Here I'm going to make a folder in my root home folder, and TTS standing for text to speech. I'm going to go ahead and source activate that environment. In Windows it's going to be activate bat. So just keep in mind it's a .bat that you're going to activate. Okay, so once you see this prefix here, it means you're in the virtual environment. Download this pre-compiled Python package that's already trained with our model. Download that and save it. I already have it downloaded, so and check for my TTS, which is right here. Now all I have to do is pip install TTS. Make sure you're in your virtual environment again. This is going to take a while, so I have this error that says could not install packages due to no space. So this is caused by no space in my current directory. Make my temp dir going to be equal to this root, and then pip install TTS. I believe something like this should work. So it's going to use my current directory as the caching, sort of caching directory, you could say. If you have this issue, you can also follow my suggestion here. Okay, so we got that all taken care of. So let's test the server out. So all I have to do once I've installed it, oh yeah, there's a few things you need to do. So this one, there's going to be a, let's just try to run it first, see what happens. So python -m tts.server.server, just following these instructions here. Don't forget, you have to actually apt-get install this espeak and lib snd file. I'm actually going to make a separate section for Windows, because in Windows to set this up is a little different. If you're on Windows, I suggest you use Windows Subsystem for Linux, so that you can follow along here. If you have Ubuntu installed on WSL or WSL2, you could just follow along here, but you need to apt-get install these packages. For Windows, you only need espeak, and you need to put that in your path. You need a sudo apt-get install espeak and libsnd file. Put in your password. It should, and I already have them installed, so it's not going to do anything. Now let's try this command here. And you're going to get an error, and this is normal. This is a numpy error. The reason is because this packaged wheel file for some reason is using an outdated numpy, so all you have to do is pip install upgrade dash uppercase U numpy. So that's going to get you all set up. There's going to be errors here saying that your version is incompatible, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. And another thing you need to do is you need to also downgrade number to 0.48. Right now we're on 0.5. It's going to give you issues if you're on 0.5. So just make sure to go back to 0.48 or else you're going to get another error. So once we have all that set up, we have our text-to-speech engine installed in our virtual environment, and we can try to run the server again. And it's going to run in localhost 5002, so let's go ahead and go over there and check it out. There it is, TTS, and let's try to synthesize something. One more thing I forgot to mention. If you have a NVIDIA GPU and you have the drivers installed, you can actually use this use CUDA option equals 1, which will use your graphics card to process the model output so that it's a lot faster. And if you're on Windows, you need to download the specific Torch version in your virtual environment. Download the Torch Python along with the CUDA that matches your GPU. So it depends on what GPU you have. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can use this feature, and that'll run the server in using your graphics card to process the model output. So let's go ahead and try Pikachu the mouse.
Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon.
So I noticed the reason it makes funny noises is when you have commas in the sentence for some reason. It's just not friendly with commas, apostrophes, periods, things like that. So
Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon.
there you go. Okay, so if you're on Windows and you don't want to use WSL for some reason, then what we need to do for setup is going to be slightly different. We're still going to go to this TTS Mozilla and make sure you have Python 3.6 downloaded for Windows. So just follow the installer here, executable installer for x64, executable installer here. And what you need to do to get set up is similar, so let's go to the wiki and go to released models, and on the bottom we're still going to download this TTS wheel file. Let's go ahead and download that. I think I already have it downloaded. Yeah, I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it. Download. Make sure you have Python 3.6 or higher. Here I have Python 3.7. Make sure to install pip install virtual env. Oh. I had to do the -- user option because I had some error there. Then what you need to do is you need to install this eSpeak. I already have it, but if you just Google eSpeak, it's going to be the first link. eSpeak speech text-to-speech synthesizer. Go to download. Use the exe file to install it. It's going to install here, or download the exe file here. I already have it, so if I run it, it's going to go through your installation, install it in the directory that you want, and just click next, 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 and install. I already have installed, so I'm not going to install it again. And what you need to do is you need to edit your environment variables to have the exe in the path. So go to the directory where you installed eSpeak and go to the eSpeak folder. Inside command line, you're going to see eSpeak.exe. And this file path is what you want to add to your environment variables. So if you go to Windows and type environment variables, you want to edit environment variables for your account. Here you see a path variable on the top. And I already added here, but what you need to do is you need to copy this, add it to your path here, and click OK. Click OK. Now you want to restart your CMD after you do all that. Restart your command line, cmd.exe. And let's create a virtual environment. So if let me go to my D drive because I have more space there. And then I can create a virtual environment using the same, using python-m I'm going to call this pym/gts. That's going to help me create a virtual environment inside pym here. All I have to do is activate that. So source pym/gts/bin/activate.bat. Okay. Okay, it's under scripts, not bin. So for Windows, it's under scripts. So I went to my virtual environment under scripts. I'm going to run /activate or activate. Okay, there you go. All you have to do is go into scripts, activate, and you'll see this prefix here, which means that we're in the virtual environment. I'm going to go to my downloads. And in here, I should have something TTS. It's here somewhere. I can't find it. Oh, here it is. So all you need to do is run pip install TTS. Click tab to autocomplete. Click enter. Okay, you're gonna get this error about installing PyTorch. So let's install PyTorch manually. If I Google PyTorch, I go to PyTorch, and there's a lot of options here. We need to download an older version, which is 1.40. So if I go to install previous versions of PyTorch, I can specify the one here. So what I want is 1.4. I want 1.4 with Torch Vision 0.5. And you want CUDA along with, if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you want this CUDA 9.2. Make sure to Google your graphics card. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card, make sure to install the correct CUDA. I'm actually going to search mine, GTX 1060 version. I don't have the max Q though. 8.0 or later should be fine. Okay. So you can usually, depending on if your GPU supports 9.2 or 10.1, I'm gonna try 9. I'm gonna try this one since it says stable. So just copy this. This is gonna install the correct torch version for us. For some reason it's not pasting. There you go. Okay, it's finally finished. Then we can run the pip install TTS again. Okay, this numpy is downgrading, but we actually need to upgrade it back, because there's going to be an error with the old numpy, so we're going to redo this later on. Okay, so let's try to run the Flask server. Go ahead and type python m tts.server.server. Okay, the first error we get is the numba decorators. All we need to do is downgrade numba to 0.48. So if we install numba equals 0.48, it's going to downgrade from 0.5 to 0.48 because in 0.5 they actually removed this module for some reason. Okay, that's finished, so let's try again. And that should work. Go to localhost 5002.
Test.
There it is. So now you can follow the rest of the tutorial. So what we're gonna do is we're going to start out by editing this backend server to do what we want. One thing we can do is we can actually make a fetch request from here to this endpoint to get the audio back and play it back. But instead of doing that, let's actually save the audio file somewhere, and in our VS Code we're just going to read that directory for the recording back. So we're still going to fetch the API here, but instead of passing it the audio directly back and streaming the audio, we're going to save it to a location so that we don't have to re-synthesize or rerun this expensive computation here. So we do it once for every Pokemon. So let's go ahead and edit this backend and you'll see what I mean. Let's see. So what we need to do is let's go to the virtual environment directory inside, in my case I'm inside pymtts, and inside the lib folder you're going to find site packages, I believe, or Python and then site packages. You're going to find TTS here. Go inside TTS, and as we did earlier, we ran server.server. So if we go into server, you're going to see the server.py, which we ran earlier to test this out. So instead of editing this file directly, let's go ahead and copy that out. It is a Flask server, so let's copy this whole thing out into my projects. Server into projects, and if we go to my projects, we're going to be able to see my TTS, my server right here, and I'm going to rename this into something like TTS backend so I know what it is. And I also made a directory for the Pokemon audio, which we're going to store all our synthesized wave files into, and we're going to play that back in Talking Pokedex. So let's go to TTS backend and take a look. Open with your favorite code editor. I've also installed an extension called Kite, which supposedly is good for Python and JavaScript. So you guys can try it out if you're interested. Not sure why it's not opening the directory. Okay, so I was able to open it up now. Okay, for some reason I wasn't able to open earlier, but now it's okay. So here you notice that we have Flask here. Let's see. From cts.server unable to. This is pylint. We don't want pylint actually. Let's get rid of pylint. Then it should stop complaining now. It's actually because the linter is disabled, but whatever. Doesn't matter. If we go down, we can see that there's Flask here. This Flask is basically just like Node.js, similar to Node.js where we have, or Express.js, where we have different routes and we have defining different endpoints. In this case, we're getting. Okay. In this case, we're getting, making get request to /API/TTS, and we're passing in the text argument, right? So as you can see, there's a text argument here. With that text, we're synthesizing the text, meaning we're running this method, this long method. That's the machine learning model that's already trained, and it's going to return to us a bytes.io file, which is a bytes.io object, which is a wave file, and then we return this file back to you to handle. Now, instead of handing back the file to me, what I want to do is I actually want to save this save this audio file as a wave file inside a directory. Okay. So let's first, what kind of name do we want to give the audio file? So every time we call this, we want to also pass in another argument, which is the Pokemon. So let's make a Pokemon variable here. Paste it here, and instead of argument get text, we're going to get argument get Pokemon. And what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of returning this file, we're going to save the file, use the with open method, and here we need to specify directory. In this case, I actually made a folder called Pokemon Audio here that's outside of the backend and the Talking Pokedex. Later on, we're going to serve this directory so that we can access this directory using the Node.js. So in my case, it's my home, projects, user, projects. Of course, in Windows it's going to be different. And I'm going to save it into Pokemon Audio / and what I'm going to save it as is this Pokemon argument, which I'm going to pass in this URL. I'm going to pass in, so Pokemon plus .wave to make sure that it's going to be a wave file that's going to be saved inside here. Okay, so with open this, and the mode is going to be a binary mode, BX, which stands for binary because this is going to return a bytes IO object, and we need to open it with this mode, which also handles with if the audio file, if it doesn't exist, then create it, something like that. So let me check my notes real quick to see if I did this correctly. Okay, so we want to do, open this as f, or as any variable we'd like, and let's save this file. So f dot, let's see, f dot write. Let's go ahead and write the data in. Data dot read. And this data is referring to the synthesized text. We're going to read the bytes, and we're going to go ahead and write that into this file. We need to return something back. So instead of returning the audio file itself, let's go ahead and return back this path, which is a string. So we're going to get a string back with the path to the audio file. Now you're going to need some tool to test this API endpoint out. I suggest Postman, so if you haven't already, go ahead and download Postman for your OS. This is a really useful application for testing your API. So download this for your OS. Go to postman.com. Once you have that installed, I actually have it in a folder here. Or I don't have it anymore. Downloads. There it is. Postman. It's a very useful tool to test your API if you haven't used it. Run this server so that we can start accepting calls. Let's check my terminals. Make sure you're in your virtual environment. Python M. We're already in the directory that we want to be in. Specify that server.txt relative modules names not supported. Okay. Don't know why, but it doesn't support /, so you just have to type python server.py, and that'll start our server in localhost 5002. This is what we expect. This is the front end we get. And go to Postman. Type localhost 5002 /API/TTS, which is what this endpoint is. We have to pass it two arguments, both text and Pokemon. Add a key here in the query parameters with text and Pokemon. Text here is going to be let's see, the Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon. So let's send this and see what happens. What should happen is that it should save a WAV file into this directory that we specified here. Okay, the request heroes. It's a 404 error. Oh, I see. I capitalized my username. Okay, apologies for that. I figured out the problem. I capitalized the username in my path. It's common stuff. Pikachu the rat Pokemon. text is Pikachu the rat Pokemon. Pokemon is Pikachu. Let's try that again. Okay, it's getting another error. So figure out the error. We capitalized my username here. So let's try that again actually, because I think it'll work this time. If we go back to http://5002/API/GTS question mark. That's GTS, and we'll go ahead and put the text here. It's gonna be Pikachu, the rat Pokemon, and another key which is Pokemon, and we're gonna type Pikachu here. It's gonna process, and it's gonna return back the path of our audio file. Let's take a look, and there it is, Pikachu.
Pikachu the rat Pokemon.
So it worked as we expected, and it returns the path that we want. So this is perfect. Let's go ahead and actually serve this directory in a separate server. So we're gonna have 3 servers set up, one for Node, one for the Flask backend processing all the WAV files, and one to serve these static files here. To projects and Pokemon audio and npm install g serve. So we're installing this tool called serve using Node globally. Okay, this is very common, getting a e-access permission denied. There's a way to fix this if you're on Ubuntu. So let's check out how to fix it actually. They suggest to either use nvm or just manually change npm's default directory. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to copy all these commands here. Okay, let's save this into our /.profile. Oops. Hide forever. So I have a path here. Add a colon here in your path and add this this npm global bin. What this does is this is going to add the new folder that you just created to the path, which is going to be used with your node. So let's go ahead and source this, and now we just need to npm install g a tool called serve. Now what serve is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to serve this these files as static files. So let's try that. Serve. Okay. Go to localhost 5000 now. Oops. See, I have Pikachu.wave here. So if I go ahead and type /Pikachu.wave, it's going to give me the wave file back. So now we have a static file server that's running. Let's keep that on. So we have 3 servers running. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to actually return, instead of returning the path, we're going to return the URL of my WAV file. So that's going to be localhost port 5000 /+ Pokemon +.wave. That's gonna give us and try a different one such as Eevee. Eevee, the question mark Pokemon. It's going to generate. Let's check. Once it's finished, it's outputting a WAV file here, and let's see what it returned back. Oh, it's still returning back this because we haven't actually restarted the server after we saved it. Let's try that again. There's an error because the file exists. So let's deal with this. If the file exists, we're actually not going to do anything, because we want to use the old one, right? So here we're going to try this, and if it doesn't work, we're going to do exception file exists error, just return the path of the file since it already exists. So once we do that, then let's restart the Flask server again. And if we run this, it should jump to the second case, which is this. And we also want this data synthesizer text to actually be in this try method. But actually it's going to try this and it's going to go here. So that's a problem because it's always going to rerun this, which is expensive for our computational resources. Let's put this in here actually, so that if the file doesn't exist, we're not going to synthesize. That's perfect. So only if this file exists, we're going to synthesize. If its file exists error, then we're just going to return, and we don't need to synthesize. Let's restart that. It should speed up significantly. Let's actually, I forgot to use the CUDA option, so remember, if you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can use this use CUDA equals 1. Let me make sure this is recording so I don't waste my time. Okay. Now, let's try this again. It should just be very quick, or not. Yeah, it's very quick. Returned the URL of my notice how quick it is, because it already jumps to this file exists error. It just returns this URL, which I can just put in my browser and play ev.wave. Okay, that's all we need to do. Let's delete these because this is not the real text that we want to transcribe. Now the files no longer exist. And let's go back to our Node.js project and see how we can actually call this API from our Node.js. So from our Node.js or our React.js app, let's take a look at that. It's right here. Every time I press this button, I want to send all this text over to our backend API over at localhost 5002. So first we need to generate this this text. So let's go ahead and create a method that's going to send all this audio, get the current Pokemon details, right? And see, where's my other VS Code? Yeah. Get the current Pokemon details, concatenate everything and send it all over to the speech.txt. So let's do that on the very bottom here. Let's create a method that's called get Pokemon audio. This is going to do, it's going to check the current Pokemon details. So actually we can just access Pokedetails directly. Let text that we're going to send over to the API equal to Pokedetails dot. So first we want the name, which we defined over here, name, right? The Pokedetails dot genus. Remember, genus is whatever Pokemon. Mouse Pokemon, rat Pokemon, something like that. Cat Pokemon. We want a space in between. Pikachu, the rat Pokemon or the mouse Pokemon. And we want a space, and then we want the description. Okay. Just console.log text to see how it looks like. And the only time we're going to run this is if we're going to click this button here. So let's take a look at, so let's write a method called let speak, let's just call it speak, equals, same thing here, so get Pokemon audio. Actually, we don't need this method. We can just directly call it. So let's pass it to Pokedex UI because this element is part of Pokedex UI. So it's get Pokemon audio equals to the function get Pokemon audio. Over in our Pokedex.ui, let's see what class this element is. So just right click it, press inspect element. It's the big blue button. And look up the big blue button. Big blue button. Oh, there's no big blue button. ID. Big blue. Oh, there it is. Big blue button. Add an on click here. And this on click is going to be props.get Pokemon audio. No parentheses there. Okay, so go to the console and when we click this, we're gonna get Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon. We don't want all these new spaces, so we're gonna have to replace all those. And this question mark here is gonna be annoying, but I don't know if we can do anything about it. Let's get rid of the commas as well. Maybe we don't get rid of the comma. So let's Google JavaScript replace all new space characters. This is what we need. So let's, for our get, not this one. Let's go ahead and close this. We're not going to edit anymore. For this, let's see. This text here, we're actually going to return let's paste that in, that replace. We're going to replace all the new spaces with nothing. And then we're also going to lowercase it so that everything's lowercase, then all the new lines are removed. Pikachu, the mouse Pokemon. When several of these Pokemon gather. Okay, there's these problematic. Okay, instead of replacing the new lines with a blank character, let's replace it with one space so that they don't stick together. Once I click this, That's what we want. We can also replace this comma because the model doesn't like commas. Replace comma with nothing. Okay, I don't know what character this is. What is this? I don't know what that is, but let's just try. So this text is what we're going to send over to our API. Okay, so our API, remember, is this endpoint here. We're going to send the text over and we're going to send Pokemon over. So in addition to the text here, let Pokemon equals Pokedetails dot name. Of course, this Pokemon is what we're going to send as arguments. Now what we need to do is we need to generate a query text that looks like this. TTS question mark text equals this, Pokemon equals that. One way we can do that is we actually have this method here called getQueryString. What that does is that takes an object and it's going to help us generate this piece of information here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my method called getQueryString to show you what I mean. Maybe this should be a separate method really. What we need to pass in is an object with text, because this takes a text argument and Pokemon. This is going to be the text and Pokemon is going to be the Pokemon. And what we want to do, console.log this to see what we get. Click this button over here. You see it generates this clean URL that represents, even with an and, that represents this piece of the string, text equals, so after that question mark there. So all I need to do is fetch this URL plus this query string over here to get what we want. Query string equals this. Let's also replace the periods because I noticed there were periods with nothing. Okay. So now we have this query string. Now what we need to do is we need to use the fetch method. Fetch is a built-in method that allows us to make a GET request. In this case, we want to make a GET request to HTTPS or HTTP localhost. In our case, we're going with 5002, which is our backend text-to-speech server / API / what was it? Let's take a look at Postman / API / TTS. And all we need to do here is add the, I can't remember if the query string contains the question mark or not. I believe it does, so let's go ahead and add the query string here. Fetch returns is an asynchronous function that returns a promise, so we need to do the then data, and log that data and see what we get. This data should give us the URL of our new audio file because that's what we returned in our Flask application. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's try and press this button. Okay, we get an error. We get a uh, cores, cores error. So there's two ways to solve this. We actually need to enable cores, which is cross-origin resource in our Flask server. So let's do that. We need to activate our Python virtual environment again. So source pyenv / tts / bin / activate. Once we have that activated, let's go ahead and pip install. Let's see, what was it? Flask cores. Go ahead and pip install Flask cores. Okay, once you have that installed in your virtual environment here, all you need to do is follow this, import cores and cores app here. In our server.py on the very top, from Flask cores import cores, and with our app, all we need to do is cores app, and that'll enable cross-origin resource, and that'll allow API requests from any source. Okay, we can also be more secure and specify the origin so that only our local host can call the API. Once you have that, that should fix our error. Or maybe we should just keep it open, just in case we need to do some more editing. For the server, let's go ahead and restart. We're going to restart. It's running now on localhost 5002. And let's try to press this button again. Alright, so we got back a not found status. Interesting. We're missing the question mark after TTS. There's no question mark. So let's add the question mark back in this over here. We need to add that question mark there just to make sure that that's working. Let's go ahead and press this button. You see Pikachu.wave is being generated here, and in our response we're going to get back the body URL. Let's see, response.body is a readable stream, and we have to read that stream. Oh, that's annoying. That's very annoying, actually. Oh, right, .json. Okay. Okay, my bad. I didn't. I'm not used to this. So here we want to get return the data.json file. I mean .json, and then we have the JSON, and let's go ahead and console.log that, and this should give us the URL. Unexpected character. Okay. Okay, I figured it out. So what we need to do is we need to get this we need to get the .json method from the data, but our backend server should return a JSON instead of this thing here. So let's go ahead and return that. So if I put this inside a map, I guess, or a dictionary, it's going to have something like this. URL with the URL here. And let's say consistent with double quotes in JSON. try that. Now let's restart the server, the Python server. And if we click this now, I'll get back the correct object with the URL. Perfect. So all I want is the json.url. So what I did, I put once we fetch this with the query string, we just need to get back the JSON and then convert that into the URL by calling the URL attribute. And we're going to actually create a new audio file based on this JSON. So let's go ahead and make a proper arrow function here. I'm going to create a new audio file called it's going to take the source, which is the URL of the audio file, which is json.url. And let's see, how do we play this? Okay, let's assign this to a variable called let voice equals new audio json.url, and then let's go ahead and play. Yeah. Then we just need to play the audio back, and let's see what happens. It should be playing Pikachu.wave now. So let's turn the volume down a bit. It's a bit loud, I believe. So
Pikachu the mouse Pokemon. When several of these Pokemon gather, their electricity could build and cause lightning storms.
it's very cool. That's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and try the next one, Eevee. So it's going to generate an Eevee.wave file. Oops. What's wrong?
Eevee, the evolution Pokemon, its genetic code is irregular. It may mutate if it is exposed to radiation from element stones.
Alright. I forgot to also put this in this return statement after we generate it. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I did was I have to return it in both cases, not just one of them. And let's restart the server, which is the Python server, the Flask server. And we hit next here. Let's try the next Pokemon. Oops, Snorlax. Let's click this button. It's going to create Snorlax.
Snorlax, the sleeping Pokemon, very lazy, just eats and sleeps. As its Rotom bulk builds, it becomes steadily more slothful.
Yeah, the results are not bad. It's better than I expected.
Chansey, the egg Pokemon, a rare and elusive Pokemon that is said to bring happiness to those who manage to get it. Greninja, the ninja Pokemon, it creates throwing stars out of compressed water when it spins them and throws them at high speed. These stars can split metal in two.
This is very cool. And if we go back to Chansey here, it's going to notice that the file already exists, so it's not going to synthesize again, but it's only going to return to us the URL of the WAV file.
Chansey, the egg Pokemon, a rare and elusive Pokemon that is said to bring happiness to those who manage to get it.
Very, very
Greninja, the ninja Pokemon, it creates throwing stars out of compressed water when it spins them and throws them at high speed. These stars can split metal in two. Mew, the new species Pokemon, so rare that it is still said to be a mirage by many experts. Only a few people have seen it worldwide.
So that's it. To recap, we have 3 servers running. One is the file server to serve these WAV files so that my React.js can actually access those URLs. The Python server, which synthesizes the text that we send it and also saves them into the proper directory, which is this, and returns back the URL that the file server is serving. If we wanted to be more advanced, here we would actually create an API. We could actually serve it directly with Flask, but I think I had issues with that solution, so that's why I went with this. In a production environment, you probably use some static file server like Nginx to serve the WAV files. That's what I've read online at least. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so that's it. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe if you find this very helpful. This is a very complex project, so it's not that beginner friendly. The front end is beginner friendly. This is a bit more advanced, and there's several ways to do it, right? This is not the only way. You can directly stream the WAV file instead of generating it first, and things like that. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a nice one. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you want to add more Pokemon, all you have to do is modify this list here called Pokemon list. You can add more Pokemon here as much as you want. You can add every single Pokemon if you want.